subject we're going to cover Mitzvah today. First one, it's a mistake made by the Bet Din, meaning someone come before the Bet Din, the Bet Din rules certain way, and turn to be a mistake. What a person needs to do and how, if is any way they can retrieve it. Second one is the issue of Kiddushei Ta'ut, which is in a way continuation of the previous day discussion, which is the issue of someone who deserted his wife for the best term, or situation that the husband disappeared, and someone, either one witness or two, came and testified that the husband is dead. She went ahead and married to someone else, and then the husband returned. Continuation of that subject, how you treated this situation. And the third one is the issue of kinyanim. Can a person makneh, can a person acquire or sell or possess something that is not yet ready, or has not yet come to this lo ba la'olam, is not yet here. So we are on page 92, 3 lines from the top of the page. So as we said, the first subject, Bet Din tells a person by mistake or public, by mistake, hora'ah, some rule, and it's mistake. So by us is niset al pi Bet Din tetzeh. We explained day before yesterday and yesterday that if one witness came, we need to have a Bet Din, a rabbinic court, to approve her to go ahead and marry someone else. All of a sudden the husband showed up, so now you have a very painful issue, and the Mishnah tells us that it's a wrong ruling and she need to be released from both, from the first husband and the second husband. So we explain that if it's a shogeg, if it was unwittingly, they need to bring a chatat, a sin offering at the time of the temple. It's called par he'elem tzibur. That's a famous Gemara in Tractate Yevamot. But the question is, when it's come to individual, it's the person needs to bring chatat or not. So now the Gemara elaborate. Amar zeiri leita lematnitin bidetanei bei midrasha. He said that if you follow the way that they said in the Mishnah, so if you have two witnesses, so two witnesses, it's situation that you do not need in a way Bet Din, you just needed two witnesses that come and say that, but it wasn't a clear, deep investigation, and as a result, we require her to bring a korban, versus if it was one ed, one witness, then it's follow hora'at Bet Din, the rule of the rabbinic court, and therefore it's exempt from the korban. Good morning. So they said the Tanei Bei Midrasha. So Ritva said when we use the term Bei Midrasha, meaning that that's the halacha. So there are two avenues when someone does something by the ruling of the Beit Din. One, if Beit Din rules that this point is permissible, and then individual follow that, and he did exactly the way he was instructed, and then it turns that the Beit Din made a mistake. We all human, and we're making mistake. Dayan dan, the judge, al pi ma she'einav ro'ot, according the way that he summarize or understand at that very moment. So since it was a mistake of the Bet Din, that person is exempt from bringing korban chatat, a sin offering. That's, as we said in the Mishnah, beginning of Tractate Horayot. However, if most of the tzibur, most of the people, made a mistake, meaning committed a wrong, a sin, by follow the wrong ruling of the Bet Din, that a new situation, the Torah required the tzibur, the public, to bring a special offering. It's called par he'elem davar, a special offering, and as individual, the Torah said in Leviticus 4, they exempt from bringing a individual sin offering. That's the Mishnah, Tractate Yevamot chapter 4. So Horu Bedin, here we go, some example. It was a Shabbat, and in those days they ruled by the way they noticed, they look up and they noticed when is the time of Shki'ah, of the sunset. But again, we can derive application to our days. Horu Bedin sheshak'a chama ulvasof zarcha. It turns, this is Saturday afternoon, the Bedin said, it's the sunset. Imagine it's a cold winter, and they said that it's already over, Shabbat is over. People follow and start doing work, ulvasov zarcha, and all of a sudden the sun rise. So it means the Bedin made a mistake. Ein zo hora'ah, which means, so it's considering not a something that they need to go and follow a sin offering, ela ta'ut. So what does that mean, ta'ut? So individual needs to bring a sin offering. Public, it's a different story. So here in the Mishnah, if you have a bet din, we try to juxtapose to our Mishnah. By our Mishnah is the idea that if the bet din allow that woman to marry, it means that it wasn't hora'ah, it wasn't ruling, but ta'ut ba'uvdot, it was the wrong evidence. Meaning that wrong witness can be, as we said yesterday, can be a non-Jew, idolater, all kind of people. Not necessarily someone who's totally reliable. That individual misled the Bet Din in regard to the truth of the death of the husband. So it means, listen carefully, the Bet Din not rule that she can go ahead and marry someone else. The whole idea of marrying in the future depend upon the life of the surviving of the husband. So the only thing Bedin said at that moment is that they can depend upon, because she's so desperate, that one individual, that the husband is deceased. We have to differentiate between that and allowance to go ahead and marry someone else. Meaning, when the husband returned, it clarified that that witness was not truthful. So since the act in our language of immorality by her married without the consent of the Bet Din by someone to someone else, it means because she basically made up her own conclusions. The moment she understands that the Bet Din approve her husband deceased, so in one hand you don't totally hold her responsible, but as far as bringing a sin offering, this Braita said that she does need to bring a sin offering, unlike the ruling of the Mishnah. So there is another opinion. Rav Nachman Amar, Hora'ahi. Rav Nachman said no, the Bet Din permission is considered a ruling that renders them liable to bring an offering for an unwitted communal sin. Amar Rav Nachman, Teida, you should know that her permission to marry, the Hora'ahi. So it means it's according to the ruling of the Bet Din, and not just by merely fact that one witness come and testify. The Bechol HaTorah Kula Ed Echad Lo Meheman. If you go the general ruling of the Torah, we always required, at least if it's not Get Mekushar of yesterday, at least we need two witnesses, right? So one witness, the entire Torah excluding the case of deserted wife, we go by two and more, not one. Vehacha, but here, in this exceptional, unique, different circumstance, meheiman, we can take one individual testimony. So what we learned earlier on page 88, so biblically speaking, it's not sufficient to have one witness in order to clarify the death of a person to allow his wife to marry. Why? Because she is considering chezkat eshet ish. She is still under the term of the married woman. And also because in anything that involves with chashash arayot, something that may involve in promiscuous act, so you have to have at least two witnesses. But here, as we said, it's exception, and you go by one. My tama, lav mishum dehoraahi. So he said it's not. She does not rely on the witness, but the decision of the court. So the idea is that that it's a mistake. So it's not the mistake by the witness only. It's a mistake that she did not go ahead, as we said yesterday, and investigate it deeply. Amarava, teida, you should know the ta'utu. It's not a hora'at shogeg, wrong, error, ruling, but a mistake. The ilu oru bedin bechelev ubedam lehetera. Now we digressing in just to approve the point here. He said, trace the situation when the rabbinic court ruled that it's a forbidden regard to blood, meaning you have, as we know, the fat and the blood is biblically prohibited. And we said, v'hadar chazru ta'amar le'isura, and then they retrieve it the way they said originally, ki hadrei ve'amrei leheitera lo mashgichinan behu. So if they rule something is prohibited, and then someone come and argue, and now they retreated and said it's okay, we do not take it. Why? Because so far we take the original notion, and since the original notion was so strong to prohibited, we stick with that. Verses here in in comparison, verses here, ve'ilu heicha de'ata edechad, versus situation that one witness come and testify that the husband is no longer among the living, sharinan le. So we allow her to go ahead and marry, and in a way, even that it's not total clear. Remember, in the fat and the blood, it was not clear originally. Hatu trei asarna. So if two witnesses come back and contradicted the previous one, and they said that the husband in real is alive, for example, he's in jail in Puerto Rico, right? So we are now prohibited her to get married. Why? Because you have stirat edut, you have the contradiction of the new two witnesses versus the original one. That's very much in comparison to the story of fat and the blood, right? Ki hadar ata ed acharina sharina lei. Now third guy came in, so now the question is, so what do? Sharina lei. You go back and you said it's okay. Remember, originally you trust one. Then you see the two came and said it's incorrect. Trace the situation. The guy left, they know he's in Puerto Rico, right? The guy came and said, I saw him dead. You said to her, all right, your husband dead. Then two guys came, no, I saw him in jail. Right? Mm-hmm. So he said he's alive. Now another guy came and said he's dead. So what are you going to do now? My tama, right? Lav mishum de ta'utu. So now you have to differentiate between two different entities. One, it's called ta'ut, meaning a mistake, or shigegat hora'ah, a erroneous ruling. Erroneous ruling, you don't treat it as a wrong evidence, wrong error and a mistake of the evidence, right? So the Rabbi Eliezer Savar, the ta'utu. Rabbi Eliezer also maintained that the ruling of the rabbinic court is an error. The Tanya, So here again is a braita. Woman couldn't find her husband. One witness came and said that he is dead, and the husband came back. Rabbi Eliezer אומר, ייקוב הדין את ההר ותביא חטאת שמנה. He said, let the law pierce the mountain, which means the matter must be fully investigated, and she need to bring a fat, a choice sin offering. What does that mean? As Rashi explains, it's like you have a mountain, you drill until you get to the bottom. It takes you a long time, right? So he said, don't look at it in the artificial, superfluous way. You have to go in a very dig in deeply in order to get clarification, because many times people acted or the evidence is not 100% correct, and impetuously you make a decision that turned to be wrong, right? So, if you tell me it's a mistake, we understand that it is required to bring an offering, sin offering. In general, we said many times that the sin offering in a biblical term is for erroneous action, okay? But but if you tell me that this is a ruling, why does she need to bring an offering? If it is the rabbinic court that should be liable to bring an offering for its incorrect ruling. ודילמה כסבר רבי אליעזר, maybe you follow the beginning of Tractate Orayot, יחיד שעשה בהוראת בדין חייב. We have to differentiate between one individual to many that does follow the rule of the Bedin. So the Gemara said, אם כן, ייקוב הדין את ההר. So remember, the key is we dig in order for us to 100% believe that she did everything in her power and she is absolutely innocent. The same here we require by the bad din. We said, hey, you have to dig in, and dig in, you're dealing with a future of people. It's not a joke, it's not something that you can take lightly and get over. This is the future not just of her, it's a future of legitimacy of her children, and therefore, so if it's a mistake, and it's an innocent mistake, so we require her to bring a sin offering. That's the way Ritva explained to us. Mishnah continue and tells us, Horua bet din lehinase. Here, the rabbinic court tell her, okay, you can go ahead and marry. But guess what happened? Sometimes people are the worst enemy of themselves, right? So what happened is, she ruined herself, and she made the wrong choices, okay? So the only thing is, Mai kilkela, what exactly she did wrong? Rabbi Elazar or Eliezer Omer zinta, meaning what happened is she engaged with a certain illicit relation, which means that wasn't for the purpose of marriage, which is the idea that since they tell her that you are now free, so she figured out she can have relation with man without getting married. ורבי יוחנן אמר, אלמנה לכהן גדול, גרושה וחלוצה לכהן גדול. Rabbi Yochanan said, no, you know what they meant? They meant to say, okay, she is now in a state of freedom, meaning that she is available. But she is available not for everyone. For example, if she is divorcee, she cannot marry a Kohen. If she is a widow, she cannot marry a Kohen Gadol. So even the Bet Din allow her to go ahead and marry someone, she still knew that she still have restrictions to whom she can get married. But she violated those rulings by go ahead and marry to those who are prohibited to her. Okay? So that's the idea of kilkela, meaning she ruined herself. Man da'amar zinta, kol sheken almana lekohen gadol. The one who said that it was illicit relation, how much so if we are in a case of the widow to a high priest. Man da'amar almana lekohen gadol, that only in a case that she is the widow that marry a high priest, then she need to bring a sin offering. Aval zinta lo, but if it was relation outside of the marriage knot, my tama, damra atunu deshaveiten pnuya. She said to them, you who deem me attached, which means although my behavior was unseemly, I may live with whomever I choose as a single woman. So it means the moment that you announce that I available, that I'm single, so that's it. So it's a big discussion among the rabbis. What exactly involved here? What's the difference in which manner they said to her and how? When you require her to bring a sin offering, when not? When you hold her that she is responsible, when not? It's a very big views and discussions among the rabbis. Tanyak vatei de Rabbi Yochanan, horua bedin lehinase. Now we derive another disputation. The bedin told her that she allowed to go ahead and marry. Vehalcha vekilkela, as we said, she ruined that. כגון אלמנה לכהן גדול גרושה וחליצה לכהן הדיוט. חייבת בקורבן על כל ביאה וביאה דברי רבי אליעזר. Here we enter to a new domain. We ask a question, since she is in violation, how you treat it? Every time it was cohabitation, you require her to bring a separate sin offering or not? So according to Rabbi Eliezer, it's required for sin offering for each and every time was a violation. According to majority of the sages, וחכמים אומרים, קורבן אחד על הכל, which is one for everything. If you remember, we studied both in the Tractate Yevamot chapter 11, Mishnah, second Mishnah. We also study it in Shabbat. If a person does many type of melachot in one time. So here we hold that she needs to bring one sin offering for all those mistakes. ומודים חכמים לרבי אלעזר או אליעזר, שאם נישאת לחמישה בני אדם, שחייבת בקורבן על כל אחד ואחד, הואיל וגופים מחולקים. So they said, if it's a case just for, hypothetically speaking, that she married 5 separate men, and each of them have cohabitation with her before the husband return, so since it's a separated bodies, so the sages agreed with Rabbi Eliezer that the sin offering required for each and every case separately. But we have to differentiate. The sages did not require to bring an offering for each act of cohabitation, because they don't hold biot mechalkot, but they hold which called gufin mechalkin, which is we have to differentiate between bodies. So bodies require a separate sin offering, but not act of cohabitation. Now the Mishnah. The Mishnah dealing with Yevamah, meaning you have a Reuven who married, let's say, Sarah, and he has a brother Shimon, and Reuven is no longer is disappeared. We don't know where is he. So the Mishnah said, "Aisha shalach ba'ala uvna limdinat hayam." She is married, Sarah married Reuven. They have a son by the name of Dan, okay? The only son they have together, okay? Reuven and Dan travel overseas, and witnesses came in, ובאו ואמרו לה, מת בעלך, ואחר כך מת בנך. So what happened here, you have to remember the way that the witnesses report. They first mention the death of the husband, and then they mention the death of the son. So since they mention the husband first, what does that mean? She is exempt from any manner of levirate marriage. Why? Because the husband take precedent, the husband death take precedence, so now she's free to marry outside whatever she wished to. Okay? Then she marries someone outside. ואחר כך אמרו לה חילוף הדברים, חילוף היו הדברים. So meanwhile this poor Sarah, she went ahead and she married Zalman, right, somebody else. And all of a sudden they told her, you know what, we made a mistake. Guess what happened? Your son first passed, and then your husband passed. So now it's a problem. Why it's a problem? Because basically, if Reuven has a brother, Shimon, he needs to marry her by the act of Levirate. And if not, he needs to do וחליצה in order to release her. Now she went ahead by the witnesses that said that the husband passed first, and she married outside to this fellow Zalman. So now what she have to do? So poor Sarah, she need to do teitze. She need to be released from the second husband. והוולד הראשון והאחרון ממזר. And the baby, first and last, it's illegitimate. So regardless, to be out of the second husband, it's regardless if she heard it before or after that news. And the reason that the Acharon also is a mamzer, it's follow Rabbi Akiva, the Gemarrah Seder. Rabbi Akiva tells us, Habal chayavei lavin, if someone cohabited with someone that it's under the violation of negative biblical commandment, so the consequence of that union is illegitimacy, avlat mamzer. Amru la med bnech, ואחר כך med baalech. Now the report is in a reverse order. The son passed and the husband passed. Meaning now what happened is she lost the son. Okay? So she have the husband lost his son before he passed. So they have no continuation, no future seed, no future generation, right? And now, since the husband passed preceding the son, she needs now to have a Levirate married, Venit Yabma, and she went ahead and have a Levirate marriage, ואחר כך אמרו לה חילוף היו הדברים. So meaning, again, you have Reuven and Dan, and she was reported Sarah, that Dan passed away before her husband Reuven, and she went ahead and have Shimon act in a ייבום, in Levirate marriage with her, and it turned that it was in the reverse order, meaning that the husband passed away and then the son passed away, which is, she's basically exempt from the ייבום, and actually she is prohibited for the second husband, because that's one of the Leviticus 18 prohibition of marrying the wife of brother when it's not the mitzvah of ייבום. Teitze, unfortunately, she need to be divorced from Shimon. והוולד הראשון והאחרון ממזר. Again, the issue of legitimacy if the children apply. אמרו לה מת בעלך ונישאת. If they told her that the husband passed and she married to someone else. ואחר כך אמרו לה קיים היה. Other witness came back and said, no, your husband was alive when you married the second one. Vamet. So again, let's say we are using a secular month. So let's say on January 2015, she heard that the husband is dead. Okay? She went on February 1st and married someone. Okay? And then on March, she heard, after she was already married, that the husband passed on February 15. And the first witnesses was incorrect, which is he passed but not passing the way that it was reported. Mm-hmm. It can happen, for example, if someone is in a breach of death and he's, for example, goses, or someone is not clear if he's dead or not, state of coma, all kind of situations, God forbid, right? So here it's a very painful situation, because actually she was married to someone while she is married to the first one. Okay? Teitze, she had no choice but to be released from the second husband. והוולד הראשון, the first baby that was born from that union, during the life of the first husband is illegitimate because she's a married woman. ממזר, והאחרון אינו ממזר, but the second one, it's not considering illegitimate, obviously, because it's after the passing of the husband. So Tosfot said it's a big issue if that issue of mamzerut is biblical or rabbinic. According to Tosfot, it's rabbinic. According to Sfot Yeshanim, is biblical. And the Meiri rejected all these notions and have two different pshatim here. We do not have time. Anyway, Amrula met ba'alech. They told her that the husband passed, v'nit kadsha, and she betrothed to someone. V'achagach ba ba'ala, and then the first husband returned. So they said, muteret lachazor lo. She can return to the first husband. So we have to remember that here we speak about only if she is betrothed, not if she is married. Meaning, even she married to someone and is no cohabitation, she just married to someone and they just finishing the dancing at the wedding and they heard that the husband is alive and nothing happened between the new couple, she is already, it's called hachana labi'ah, and she is already, according to our rabbis, prohibited. Only if she engaged, she betrothed, she's not married, then she can return to the first husband. Af al pi shenatan la ha'acharon get, even the second one provided her the bill of divorce, she's not considered divorcee, lo psala mina kehuna, meaning if the first husband was a kohen, she is still capable to receive all those privileges as a wife of a priest, and he can have her back as a wife. Et zo darash Rabbi Lazar ben Matya, when the Torah commanded the priest in Leviticus 21, ve'isha grusha me'isha, a woman that divorced from the husband they should not take. So it means only if she's divorced, velo me'ish she'eino isha, but not from a man that it's not her husband, which means the second man in this case. So we should know that it's all rabbinic, which called asmachta be'alma. Later we learn in the Gemarrah the concept of reach get. Reach get meaning, in the rabbinic concept, the husband has, even sometimes it can turn that the get was not good, was not qualified, was not legitimate, etc. But the husband has the opportunity, the authority to provide the bill of divorce, to give a get, versus someone out of marriage life. So he doesn't have the reach get, reach meaning the smell, the access to get. It's just a piece of paper. So my rishon u my acharon. What does the Mishnah meant when they use the term first and last? Ilei marishon lifnei shmu'a, meaning before the news came that they are prohibited to marry, ve'acharon lachar shmu'a litne avlad mamzer. So it's no different between first and last, because the child is already illegitimate. So the Gemara responded and said, mishum dekaba'ei lemitnei seifa, because the Tana, the rabbi teaches in the Mishnah, applies to the third circumstance, which is Amrula met ba'alech. They told her the husband is no longer among the living. Then said, and she went ahead and married someone else. Amrula kayamaya, and then they told her that the husband, the first husband at the time of the marriage of the second one, he was alive. Vamet, and the first husband passed after she already married to the second husband. So they said the baby harishon, the first pregnancy, it's mamzer. Ve'acharon eino mamzer. The last one, it's not issue of illegitimate. So Tanan amereish harishon ve'acharon mamzer. תנו רבנן, זו דברי רבי עקיבא, שהיה אומר, אין קידושים תופסים בחייבי לוי. That's the view of Rabbi Akiva, who said that a child that was born from those liable of violating prohibition, prescribing this type of relation with chayavei lavin, so the baby it's a mamzer, אבל חכמים אומרים אין ממזר מי ומה, which is, since she is prohibited to outside of the yavam, so the child that come out is not mamzer. According to Tosfot, it's only mid'oraita, only biblical. But the rabbinic, yesh mamzer mivama, according to Tosfot. Veleima en mamzer mechayavei lavin. You may hold that there is no mamzer from those liable for violating a regular prohibition. So the Gemara said, Haitana hach tana de Rabbi Akiva de amar mechayvei lavin disher have mamzer. He hold that that's apply for those who have a close knit, a kirva, a relation, close relationship. That's considered mamzer. Mechayavei lavin grade. But the regular prohibition, which is the prohibition that does not involve a family relationship, such as a prohibition that is the wife of the dead man shall not be married outside of the family to one of not of her kin, that's the Deuteronomy 25, it's not a mamzer. Amar Rav Yehuda 92 Biyamarav minayin she'en kiddushin tofsim biyevama. From where it derived that betrothal by another man does not take an effect with Yevamah, שנאמר, they said in Deuteronomy 25, לא תהיה אשת המת החוצה לאיש זר. She cannot marry outside of the family to one not of his kin. So is that indication to do what? לא תהיה הוויה לזר, which is אין תפיסת קידושין. They don't have a manner of betrothed to someone outside. ושמואל אמר, בעניותנו tzricha get, because we are aniyut, meaning that we are not have the possibility to like poverty of knowledge. We are not erudite enough to know fully understand everything here. So since that, she need to get from the second husband. Nesapka leShmuel, hay lo tiyesh et hamet achutza ila lavu deata, which means the idea of yesh kiddushin b'chayavei lavin, ida lo tafse ba kiddushin udeata. So since it's a quandary, it's a fact, she's tzricha get. So the truth is, it's a disputation among the Rishonim, among the rabbis, which is Ramban, Ritva, Rashba, and Tosfot, if this disputation between Rav and Shmuel applies to tfisat kiddushin b'ivama. So the big question is if that child that come out of that union is mamzer or not. It's a lot to talk, but in general, Tosfot tells us in page 49b, good morning, they said that that it's only the two nafkamina, the two issues. One is tfisat kiddushin, if they have a manner of betrothal in effect. Two, if someone abal yevama bashuk, if someone have relation with that yevama outside of that marriage. So there is a book called Beit Meir. Here I have a big hakira, a big research in Siman Reish Memtet 249. If you have tfisat kiddushin b'chayavei yevama lashuk, which is Reuven passed away, Shimon, his brother, needs to do ייבום, and then someone, Zalman, someone from outside, went ahead and did ייבום, meaning he married her. So if we force Zalman to release her, if now Shimon can go ahead and marry her or not. Anyway, here is the beauty of the grandson. Amar le Rav Mari bar Rachel. Rav Mari bar Rachel was the grandson of Shmuel. And you mentioned his mother's name because according to our sources, his mother was a captor, and she got pregnant by a idolater, etc. And then he converted. So therefore, we want to give an honor, so we give an honor to his mother. So anyway, Rav Mari bar Rachel said to Rav Ashi, the rule is according to my grandfather Shmuel. Amar Rav Ashi, isn't that fun to say halacha is follow my grand? Amar Rav Ashi Ashdod Amar Amemar Ilcheta Kvatei de Shmuel Im Haya Yevama Kohen, if that Yavam was a Kohen and she married by the wrong testimony, v'choletz la v'sharya, so he can release her and she can go and marry and go back to her husband. Which means if the person who has kikut Yavam is a Kohen and she betrothed to someone else, if she divorced from her husband, she is prohibited to her Yavam because the divorcee cannot marry a Kohen. So therefore the Yavam need to release her with Chalitza, and therefore she said she can go ahead and marry a husband. Guri Idgar. Matzinu choten iskar. So it means that the husband gained out of that out of sin, even the time that they marry, they will not realize that she's prohibited. But since they didn't search deeply, so it means that we rewarded those who committed the sin. So אלא אם היה יבמה ישראל נותן לה שני גט, and then הותרה לו, so then she can go and marry. So the only thing is, the Ritva said, if the Yavam is not Kohen, then the second husband provided a get, and then he can do ייבום. So, and later we see in our view that שומרת יבם we treated like a married woman. Anyway, אמר רב גידלא אמר רב חייא אמר בר יוסף אמר רב יבמה קידושין אין בה נישואין יש בה. So Rashi said, כסה לו ידך לעניין גט, ואם נישאת לזר שמרו לה מת בעלך ואחר כך בנך צריכה גט. So the big question is, if they told her that her husband passed and then the son, if she needs a get or not. קידושין אין בה, נישואין אין בה. So the same way that you don't say any matter of betrothed, so the same נישואין, so why she need the get? אימה קידושין ונישואין אין בה. The both. Rosh challenged that. Anyway. והיא באה אימה מה נישואין יש בה? כזנות, which means that she, the מעשה נישואין, it's כאילו, it's like she have act of זנות, and therefore she is prohibited to that יבם. כדי רב נונה, דאמר רב נונה, שומרת יבם שזינתה אסורה לבעלה. So רב נונה hold that if the shomeret Yavam, the widow waiting for Yavam, who committed an act of illicit relations, is prohibited to her Yavam. Another, the third view, the way that we said originally. Kiddushin en ba, nisuin yesh ba, demichalfa bisha shalach balam. So that switch of the situation, a case, confused with a case that the woman who was a husband went overseas. So the sages decree that he must give her a get, so that people will not say that the woman who remarried after hearing that the husband had died, likewise does not require a get. So the halacha, Amar Rabbi Yanai, b'chavura, when the sages got together, the rule, nimnu vegamru, the rule, ein kiddushin tofsin bivama. They conclude that betrothal by another man does not take effect with Yevama. Amar le Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi, lo mishnotenu. That's not what we study Mishnah Ditnan, that's Kiddushin, page 62. Haomer leisha, if an Jew said to a woman, you will betroth me after I'll finalize my conversion process, or after you become Jewish, after I release as a servant, or you, I will marry you after your husband passed, after I will marry you when your sister passed, or she cannot be betrothed in that, because you cannot do that in a retroactive manner. It's called davar shelo ba la'olam. This is something that not happened yet. So on that condition you cannot make a retroactive act of betrothal. So Rabbi Yanai responds, Amar lei, ilav didlai lachaspa mi mashkachat marganita tutei. So if I didn't reveal, it's like using a euphemism. If I didn't reveal the cover of the pearl, of the diamond, you don't know what is it. That because I taught you that Kiddushin not taking effect in Yevama, you didn't even think that way. Amar le Resh Lakish ilav de klasar Gemarrah Rabbi. If Rabbi Yanai did not acquiesce with your words, Hava min alachana, I will say to you, Matnidin Rabbi Akiva idamar and Kiddushin tofsim b'chayav elavin. So you go by Rabbi Akiva that said that betrothal does not take an effect to those liable for violating regular prohibition, and therefore it is not effective with Yevama. However, according to their opinion of the sages, betrothal is effective for this woman in the case of all regular prohibitions. So they said, V'i Rabbi Akiva, if you tell me that the Mishnah followed Rabbi Akiva, ki amar la lachar she'achlos le'ivamech, litpesei kiddushin, after they do וחליצה, then we do manner of betrothal. That's according to Rabbi Akiva, that's in effect, because we follow Rabbi Akiva in different locations. That's the Mishnah Tractate Nedarim, page 85. Da'amar adam makne davar shelo ba la'olam, meaning a person can transfer an entirely that is not yet come to the world. So Rabbi Akiva is for the opinion that an acquisition can take effect for something not yet in existence. So if you tell me that way, even a betrothal cannot take effect now, it should be valid after she has performed וחליצה. So that basically follow the Mishnah in Tractate Nedarim that said, if this is forbidden like consecrated property, so referring to anything, ein tzarich להפר, the husband not need to abrogate that neder. Rabbi Akiva אומר, יפר שמא תעדיף עליו יותר מן הראוי לו. Maybe she asked to do tithe more than befitting, more than she can take. האיתמר עלה אמר רב מונה ברד רב יהושע, אומרת יקדשו ידיי לא עושיהן, which means to Hashem, which means she didn't vow for all of her labor, but prohibited to her husband like a consecrated item in regard to any labor she made. The yadayim itnehu be'alma. So in that sense, since her hands are in the world, she has not attempted to acquire something that does not exist. So therefore, is no proof here with regard to Rabbi Akiva's opinion in that issue. Upliga the Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. So again, we don't have the time in my book. I explained here is Rashi. Rashi said, "Klomar merav שהוא רבי קיבלה." So anyway, upliga the Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. The Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Rav Huna sover ורב כרבי ינאי, ורבי ינאי כרבי אחי, ורבי אחי כרבי, ורבי כרבי מאיר, ורבי מאיר כרבי אליעזר בן יעקב, ורבי אליעזר יעקב כרבי עקיבא, דאמר אדם מקנה דבר שלא בא לעולם. So each of them received a tradition from the one before, and they said a person can transfer to another an entity that has not yet come to the world. So it basically shows us that Rabbi Akiva indeed maintains that one can acquire something that does not yet exist.
ויחם לשולוים מלאכי השולוים מלאכי